Welcome back to Fight Sports Uncovered. I'm your host, Mark Joubert, and if you missed the first part of the show, we're breaking down a little bit about this sort of new kid on the block, Illusion Gaming, talking to the founder, Fabio Viveros, and he was telling us about what the vision is, where he'd like to take the organization, and part and parcel of that vision is my next guest, Vince Makhuvha, otherwise known as Vinpetrolium. Vince, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on the show. And you've been in the FGC, in the fighting game community now for 10 years now?
Yeah.
10 years? What excited you about the fighting game community, other than obviously punching someone else in the face and not getting hurt yourself?
First of all, thanks for having me. I've been a gamer for a long time. I've just started off just as a gaming, playing, Mario, the usual games that we play. And then, I also got introduced to Street Fighter. That was the first game I played, and I'm still playing it even today.
Favorite character?
Right now it's Rashid, because he's a new character on Street Fighter 5. He got introduced in Street Fighter 5, but the usual is your Ryu, Ken, Guile, the very first original cast. So that's how I really got into the fighting game. I started playing with the current champion, which is Billy, where we started playing together. He's a cousin of mine. We started playing together, and then we sort of grew together in the scene, and we're still playing even today.
So 10 years ago, you decided to get into the fighting game scene, and it's only, as I understand, the last 2-3 years where you've really decided to focus in let's call it a semi-pro sort of fashion, because it's very difficult for most gamers in this country to be full-on pros.
Yeah, so that's what I like to call it, semi-pro, because it's not something that I do full-time, but it's something that I do for most of my time as well. I do dedicate a good 2 to 3 hours a day, sometimes even 5 to 6 hours on the weekends, just playing the fighting games, playing the regular fighting game, Street Fighter. So that's why I'm saying it's semi-pro. Also the fact that we are now sort of getting to interact with other pros from other regions and other countries as well. So that's why I'm saying it's semi-pro as well. Yeah.
So tell me, what does a day in the life look like for Vince when it comes to those, let's call it 2 to 5 hours, 2 to 6 hours that you actually practice? Are you practicing your offensive skills? Are you practicing your defensive skills? Looking at what you've done right, looking at what you can improve on. How does Vince sort of put together his fighting game day on any given day?
Okay, well, first and foremost is I have a full-time job, so once that's done,
get that out of the way. Yes.
Get that out of the way. Then what I do is, I firstly go into training mode, get my character. I like to train firstly just basic combos, things that you have to get onto the habit of, just so you're good at the game. So we call them bread and butter combos. So those are the simple combos that you can do while, even if someone wakes you up in your sleep, you'd be able to do those combos. So those are just so that you get sort of warming up as well. And then once you've got that done, luckily we have a community. Shout outs to WhatsApp group that we have, SFV Motivations and Beating, and also our Discord, SAFGC. That's the community that we have, and also the people, my teammates in Illusion Gaming as well. So you sort of then call them up, send a WhatsApp message, guys, is there anyone who wants to play some games? And then from there, we just have casual matches. That then helps in terms of, getting used to certain things, getting used to a certain character that maybe you're struggling with, or maybe coming up with strategies on how you can face a certain opponent. Or maybe you might find that, in a tournament that you played, you fought someone who used a character that maybe someone in our community uses that character. And then you just call him and say, can we play maybe a couple of games, maybe first to 10 games, so that you get used to, you get a feel of the character and see what strategies you can come up with against that character. So a day is basically just practicing for maybe 30 to 45 minutes, and then most of the time is just playing other people as well. And then after that, you go back into training based on the data that you got while you were playing the other guys, yeah.
How would you classify the FGC community right now? I mean, you're in it, you're deeply in it, not only just from the groups that you're on, the Discord you're on, and the team itself, Illusion Gaming, but how would you classify FGC in South Africa right now?
FGC in South Africa, it's growing. That's the first part. It's still quite small. We'd love to grow it bigger, and we'd love to get more and more people in it. But with more and more tournaments coming in, and more interest, like the interviews that we're having now, they are what foster and what help in the growth of the community. It's definitely not even close to where at least personally I would love to see it grow as big as unfortunately COVID as well didn't do any good to the community in terms of the offline events that we used to have, but it's a very small community if you look at the other communities that are there, but like your Call of Duty, etc. This is still a more growing community, and we'd love to get more youngsters to be part of the team. Yeah.
What needs to be done to grow it faster? Because I've spoken to a lot of other FGC gamers, and they all use that word, it's growing. But you don't see where it's growing. I mean, the last year and a half, almost 2 years, you haven't had events.
Yes.
Okay, everything is now gone online. So you're all sitting in your basements, in your bedrooms, and in your studies, and you're fighting each other, you in your house, him in his house, her in her house, etc. And that's how it's currently taking place.
Yeah.
What needs to take place to grow it faster?
I think it's a couple of things really. Number one is, the biggest one is exposure, right? So if you expose these games and get them, big as, the current games that are exposed out there, people will then be interested in the game. Now, once someone is then interested in the game, then they need a community. They need to be welcomed some way. Someone will be interested in the game, but they won't play it alone. These are type of games wherein they're good if you're playing with others. So once the exposure of the games is shown, and then people actually know about the game, and then the people come into the community, then we need to have sort of more sessions and more, I would say, things like boot camps for the game, so that we sort of then teach the newcomers, we teach them the basics of the game, so they get used to the game, they get to understand the game, they get to understand the concept and the vision and understanding of the game, and then that way they could be able to grow into the game. I think it's more like any other thing that you want to get into, right? You have to first find it interesting, then you would be able to dedicate time. So I think the more events and the more bigger events that we're getting, that is good exposure for the games. And then once the people come in, the newcomers come in, then if they find a community that's welcoming, a community that's willing to teach them and help them have the skills that are necessary to at least maybe compete or to find interest and enjoy the game, then that way I think we can grow it even further.
So essentially, more tournaments like the Red Bull Street Fighter Cup, which
Red Bull hit the streets, yes.
Yeah, they hit the streets. I mean, the concept of fighting someone else to attend the Kumite, I mean, that's massive.
Yeah, exactly. So when you have things like that, right, there's incentive for now why you should actually have or be part of that community, because
so going to Vegas, is that big enough incentive for you?
It's extremely big. All expenses paid, trip to Vegas.
That's the piece, all expenses.
All expenses paid. So so that's a good enough incentive. So if we get more and more things that have incentives like that, I just got reminded now. One of the guys that we played with, one of the first times they were in a flight and to Cape Town was through fighting games. So that's also, you see, that's a great incentive as well. If they're saying the tournament, if you win this tournament, we'll fly you down to Cape Town, and then you'll compete with other players. So that gives the opportunity for whoever is coming in to actually see the value in it. That okay, maybe now it's Cape Town, but maybe next it will be Vegas. Who knows? So having more tournaments, having more things that will incentivize the players. But really, first it should be people should enjoy the game. Really, that's the starting point. And then from there, the incentives comes later. That's how I got in as well. Yeah.
Final question to you, Vince. You've been at this now 10 years.
Yeah.
You've decided to become a little bit more professional, a little bit more focused. Okay. What's your advice to any young gamer out there that is looking at this massive gaming mountain ahead of them? What's your advice to them?
My advice is, you start small, right? You start, if you're looking to grow big, everyone who's big started off baby steps. So don't focus on, don't look at how big the mountain is. Just focus on baby steps, right? And enjoy the game. That's really what it is. At the end of the day, it's something that you should feel good about when you switch on that, your PlayStation, your computer, or your Xbox, and say, I want to play this game. So just enjoy the game, be part of the community, find the communities, just like I mentioned, the WhatsApp and the Discord. Just be part of that. We're very welcoming. Once you're in there, you can learn. That's why I said, well, we might need some boot camps wherein we teach the basics to the people that are learning, and also be interested. Interest is number one. You have to be interested. You have to like the game, and you have to be interested in growing within the game. And I think that's the biggest advice. And more and more things, once you are in the community, you get to understand how things work, right? That's the biggest advice that I'll give. Yeah.
Fascinating advice indeed. Get interested and get involved. That's the key for you to become good at whatever it is that you want to be good at.